I would say that I am one of the biggest fans of the idea that underground and underwater exploration could be in Breath of the Wild 2. Ever since its reveal in 2019, I was looking forward to the game having darker areas, having cave-like areas, having the truly scary areas or straight up fun massive cave to explore, or at least I'm one of the most outspoken content creators on the matter anyway. I think me and a lot of other people really did think that the main gimmick of the next game would be the fact that Link would be able to explore underneath the usual land of Hyrule, and that land would have been changed somewhat above and below, since the only thing that we knew about Hyrule's underground is that for years, shrines just kinda sat under there without being challenged by, well, anything. Though to create a real world, you need some sort of underground thing. Now of course in the week we had the delay of Breath of the Wild 2 until spring of 2023, and while I took a lot of things from that trailer, I'm not going to try and get ahead of the curve and talk about all the other stuff that others want to talk about already. The Master Sword, that weird symbol, the possible inclusion of Spirit Form Zelda. I'm going to let everyone else talk about that, because one thing that I took away from the trailer, and something I'm only seeing a few people talk about at the minute, is that Eiji Aonuma, the producer of the series, pretty much gave us a summary of everything that we've seen in the game so far through mainly the second trailer from E3 last year. As a side note, while E3 this year as a whole has been cancelled in the last couple of days, I still think Nintendo would have planned a direct and will still go ahead with that plan. Whether it's with the Summer Games Fest or just by themselves, they'll still have something to show us. This isn't 2020, and they'll still have Nintendo Treehouses and other things like that. Back to the topic at hand. Aonuma stated that we've already seen the normal Hyrule that we saw in the last game, and we've also seen the Sky Islands. Then, and I quote, "However, the expanded world goes beyond that." This is what today's video is about. What could that quote mean? What could this expanded world mean? Well, I think Aonuma is actually teasing the game's next trailer, most likely coming in June, so let's get into talking about it. Before we start though, if you like Zelda content then please do subscribe. It's completely free and only 16% of viewers on the channel are actually subscribed, so it would mean the world if the number could slowly crawl up. I mean, I have some really cool projects on the way and I want to share them with as many people as possible. Without any further ado, let's talk about what an expanded world in Breath of the Wild 2 means. Now, I've previously done standalone videos to discuss both underground and underwater exploration, so before we get into talking about them even more, I think it's important to discuss other plausible alternatives instead of these areas. As an example, and a genuine possibility, Aonuma could just be alluding to the fact that the world of Hyrule that we saw in the original game could literally just be different. Expanded doesn't necessarily have to mean that the world is bigger. It could just mean an expanded roster of enemies and habitats to explore. Though something similar to this idea, and a little more plausible to me at least, is if there were more islands like Eventide scattered across the outside of the map. There are a few islands like this in the original game, so it would make sense for the Zelda team to take a quick glance at the original, then shoot a quick look over at Wind Waker and make the final decision to add some more islands to the game. Heck, if they're adding basically the equivalent of that but all the way up in the sky, then that could definitely be a thing that's on the Zelda team's radar, and would still be greatly appreciated. Though I don't think it would be quite as appreciated by fans of the original than both underwater and underground exploration. Now, there are a variety of ways to do these kinds of exploration, and considering the amount of development time that seems to have gone into this game, it really wouldn't surprise me if they went all out and somehow included both of them. They're the easiest ways to expand a world and how it feels without going into other dimensions and stuff like that. If this happens to be the case, then we really could be getting another competitor for best open world game of all time, a mere year after Elden Ring's release. Now, something that I think a large group of people can agree on when it comes to Elden Ring is the idea that the player can enter any cave around the map at any time. It really opens up the world to your imaginations and can create a huge amount of lore for the world. It also means a lot of playtime, especially on a first playthrough. Now, when we look back at Breath of the Wild, all of us can remember shrines. For some people, finding and solving shrines was actually the primary source of their enjoyment. But imagine in the next game to find your Spirit Orb equivalents, there's actually more than one method. Imagine there are caves, sky islands, and overworld puzzles that all lead to getting you Spirit Orb things, allowing you to upgrade your life force or whatever stats are quantifiable in the next game. Expanding the world in this way makes sense since shrines were basically already underground anyway, and by having different methods to find Spirit Orbs, you also allow people to explore at their own pace and they can be on the lookout for more than one thing, keeping the game more engaging, especially since shrine hunting in Breath of the Wild just meant looking for a lens flare in the distance. Not to mention with this, you also have different themes a lot of the times you're doing objectives for the Spirit Orbs, ultimately making a system that would far outweigh the shrine system in the previous game, though the shrines did hold some really cool lore and plot relevance, so the team would have to do some stuff to rectify that. All of this said, I'm not sure if caves would be like shrines. Aonuma said it would be an expanded world. Having a world basically full of shrine-like caves, again, isn't an expanded world, it's just the same world again, but with new puzzles in new areas. So that being said, I think caves will be in the game for sure. I mean, we've seen a quick trailer shot in the newest E3 trailer, and the first trailer for the game was entirely set underground, so I'm pretty sure we'll get some type of underground activities, even if it just ends up being a few different caves that end up giving Link weapons or maybe some new items that he needs to enter dungeons set out in his adventure. Underground exploration can be done in many ways, but I think the Zelda team will know that to make a world truly lived in and to truly flesh out that world, Hyrule needs some amount of caving, otherwise it's like Hyrule has never had any sort of caves mined out in the past, even though, you know, through lore complications we know that's not the case at all. The biggest issue with massive caves or something like that is performance issues. Technically, if these caves are big enough, then we could see them interrupt the world through loading screens though, so who knows. Anyway, caves, I think they're almost certain, and I think we'll see them in action in gameplay footage pretty soon actually, but more on that at the end of the video. Next up is underwater exploration. Ever since Breath of the Wild's release in 2017, I feel like this has been the one thing that every single person has pretty much unanimously agreed on wanting as long as they do it right. The biggest disappointment for me in the first game was that I could jump into Lake Hylia without a single care in the world, but I couldn't see underneath that. Link could only ever swim in lakes or in the ocean at its very surface level, which I think is just crazy when you think about how much the underneath of Lake Hylia has done in the series, whether it be in Ocarina of Time, unearthing the water dungeon, whether it's in Twilight Princess giving us a huge lake with a temple lying at the bottom of it. Same thing in Skyward Sword, giving us a giant body of water to explore through underwater traversal, though that was Lake Floria. Don't get me wrong, the Zelda team hasn't ever truly perfected underwater or even water exploration as a whole, but again, to truly expand on the world created in Breath of the Wild, I think one of the easiest steps to go through would be to incorporate some underwater exploration. Maybe in these areas there are underwater specific materials, maybe some underwater enemies and dungeons, leaving us with a good water dungeon, something that the series has only done a handful of times in a 3D space. The opportunities are endless, and that doesn't just go for underwater exploration, that goes for the game as a whole, because while these expansions that I've discussed today are exciting and could definitely be plausible, there's likely other methods of expansion that you guys have thought up in the past, so if there are any that you'd like me to talk about in the future, then please do let me know in the comments section. Let me close this video out by saying I truly think we'll be seeing one, if not both of these methods of exploration fully realised much sooner than we think. So far we've had two trailers for the game. The first one showed us the underground and gave us an idea of the concept, by showing us something reminiscent of a massive cave or maybe even a dungeon. Then in the 2021 trailer we were shown the sky side of the world, with Aonuma hinting at more methods of expanding this already huge world. I think we're moving into the beginning stages of marketing. In June, I think the Zelda team will unveil that final method of exploration, whether it be underground, underwater, both of them, or none of them. And then at the Game Awards later in the year, I think they'll give us a big trailer of all methods being focused on before a massive overview trailer a month before the game's release. Just my thoughts though, so let me know what you think in the comments section down below. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, then please do support me by leaving a like rating and subscribing as we wait for more Breath of the Wild 2 news. I stream weekly on a Wednesday now, so along with being a part of the 16% of people who are subscribed that are watching right now, you'll also get even more content, so thank you a ton if you do. The people you can see on screen right now are my Patreon supporters, and they are just amazing people, look at them. Some G and Jared Whedon are especially amazing for being my top paying patrons, now just look at their Triforce coloured names and that Triforce font. Thank you so much for the support guys. If you'd like to join them, then you can do for as little as £1 or $1.50 a month. The link to my Patreon is in the description, and along with that link is the link to the rest of my media platforms, so please do follow me on them to keep in touch with me. Again, thank you so much for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on Wednesday if you join the stream, or if we somehow get another 5-second clip from the game. Sunday if you don't join the stream. Okay, now please do, stay safe.